Okay, so I'm going to be doing something a little different today. I'll be ranking, I guess, how well supports in Overwatch 2 synergize with Hog. This is my perspective as a top 500 Hog one trick. Obviously, this list applies to ladder. It'll look a little different if you're playing in like some sort of scrim setting for some reason. I know he's not particularly good in organized play, but that's beside the point. And of course, this list isn't what supports are best in the game. Because again, the list is going to look quite different, or best in general, I say. This is specifically how well they pair with Hog. So I guess the four my main criteria I look at when trying to analyze what supports are good with Hog are how well their heals synergize with Hog, how well their cooldowns synergize with Hog, how good they are at doing damage from, generally speaking, an off angle, and how well their ult also combos with Hog, right? So just going through these kind of one by one. So what you're really looking for heal-wise is burst healing over distance, right? Hog doesn't want his team to all kind of like sit on the same angle. So your teammates need to be able to heal you from a distance, and preferably they need to burst, be able to like have some burst cooldown that can also like get you back to full very quickly, right? Because Hog, generally, you're not going to take a lot of sustained damage. You're going to be peeking looking for a hook, take a ton of damage, right? And want to get healed back up to full as soon as possible, so you're hard to push. You're not going to be sitting out in the open because you don't have a shield or anything, so you can't just kind of like eat random damage, right? So that's generally what you're looking for. Cooldown synergy with Hog, basically either characters that can use their cooldowns to give you openings to get easier hooks or let you push or something like that, or bail you out of tricky situations. Right, so nullifying anti, obviously going to be a big deal. Again, looking like damage and off angle strength, pretty self-explanatory, like how easily they can rotate to off angles and consistently output damage. Because like I said, if Hog's team kind of stacks with them, you're kind of trolling because he can't just eat 5 people sustain fire like ever. He's just going to be unable to do anything except heal or die. So he needs people to pressure from multiple angles, right? So very important that they can do this. And again, the last point, ult synergy, right? Not necessarily how well their ults play with whole hog in particular, but how well they'll enable hog in general, right? Generally speaking, this is just going to be what the strongest ults are in the game. But in particular, right, ults that don't require grouping are very powerful. Okay, so I'm going to be trying to list characters in order, and the tiers that I place them in order of how good they are, right? But obviously, like, the tiers are pretty distinct. So you have optimal. I consider these characters that are pretty much always a good idea to play with Hog. Really, you don't ever want to swap off. You can run any character in here with Hog. Any combination will probably work like most of the time, right? Good. I'd say not quite as good as optimal, but like if you're having trouble on one of these characters in optimal, you can swap, one of them, and you'll still do all right. But they're missing something that really sets them, one of those 4 things I mentioned earlier. They're missing one of those things, or sometimes multiple, that differentiates them from optimal. So situational. I have one character in mind for this. I'll actually spoil it right now. Where is he? Lifeweaver. He's either very useful or kind of like completely dead weight. So like what I'd say is on some maps and against some comps, I'd say he's good, almost not quite optimal. He still has a lot of problems. I think I'd say he's almost good. In other matchups and maps, he's pretty much useless. I'll leave it at that for now. I'll explain more so as we progress. Niche, no reason. I think these characters are kind of like pointless to play with Hog. They don't really offer anything to him, and they have like some problems, character design wise sometimes. And like I said, they don't really synergize at all. But they're not like terrible picks. There's just no reason to ever pick them over anyone that's above them, generally speaking. Bad, I'd say these characters like anti-synergize almost with Hog. Like they have too many problems and don't offer enough support for what Hog needs. pretty much ever, right? So, like I said, with Lifeweaver, sometimes he falls in this category against certain matchups. He's like completely dead weight. I'll get into that a bit more. So, at the top of this list, I think Ana is actually Hog's best support, not Kiriko. Um, and for the following reasons, right? She has pretty much instant heals over range, right? Hit scan heals over range. She has, if not the high heals per second in the game, close to it. Juno's might be slightly higher, so very useful, right? And she can also nade Hog, which boosts only not only her own heals, but Hog's heals as well, right? So he's like functionally unkillable if he gets naded by an friendly Ana, right? So obviously you don't want to do that all the time, but something to keep in mind. Ana's cooldowns are fantastic with Hog, right? She can sleep someone, which pretty much guarantees they die, right? Because you sleep a squishy. Hog's hook cooldown is almost as long as the duration that squishies are slept for. Unfortunately, tanks not always the case, but he gives a cooldown shorter. Obviously, I think it's 3 seconds, 2.5, something like that. But still, you pretty much are like guaranteed to get a pick or like significant cooldown trades if Ana hits asleep because your hook range is so long too, right? So very valuable. And nade, if you like nade a tank, if Hog hooks them in, they're just like guaranteed to die unless they have like a Kiriko. So both cooldowns are like really, really good with Hog. Offangle strength, again, I guess Ana's only problems here are that she's kind of vulnerable to getting rushed down if she doesn't have cooldowns. And she has no mobility, right? So kind of like risky to go too far, but at the same time, right? She has functionally infinite range. She has decent damage, and like she's still dangerous to push when she has her cooldowns, right? Because she can pretty much, especially with Hog, insta kill anyone if she lands asleep. So, um, quite annoying, right, for people to go in against because she can put out a decent amount of damage and relieve some pressure from Hog. And again, I guess in terms of ult synergy, I think Nano is the best support ult with Hog. You don't need your team to be grouped, and you pretty much guarantee that if your Hog hits a hook, right, he just one-shots whoever he hooks, right? So, like, if he hooks like a Mei or a Bastion or a Torb or a Reaper, right, they don't actually get one shot without Trap, for example. And even then, they can be sometimes difficult to one-shot, depending on, like, the exact specifics of the situation, like if they're on a different elevation or something. Nano basically guarantees that they get one shot, right? Hog is, like, actually really difficult to kill when he gets nanoed. And Nano Hull Hog is really dangerous. And like I said, the big thing is that it doesn't require the team to be grouped. So Hog can like hit a good hook, get nanoed, and like sometimes even insta kill tanks, right? Just off a nano. And he doesn't need his entire team to be there to get value off of it, like Kitsune or Juno ult. Yeah, I really think the only time like Ana doesn't work is if they're running like, you know, a hard dive or like hard rush where she just can't play in safe positions. That's really rare on ladder. So in general, I'd say she's probably Hog's best support. But at the same time, she's probably the most likely to need to swap if the situation calls for it. Honestly, if the Ana has to swap, maybe you should also swap, you know, unless you're really committed to one-tricking Hog. So, you know, next best support, probably everyone saw this coming, Kiriko. She's decent healing, right? It's not instant like Ana, not hit scan. It's a decent amount, and of course it goes over any range as long as you have as long as you have LOS. And I'll add, kind of like with nade, she can Suzu over distance, right? It's gonna be probably a little harder to hit the nade, not too important though. And it gives you invuln plus the healing plus the cleanse, which can really bail you out of bad situations. It's kind of like getting animated and like getting super healed. Not quite the same, but obviously, you know, it is an option pretty much to get burst healed. Cooldown synergy, right? Suzu really, really good with Hog. Getting the invuln for just half a second can help you peek for hooks and stuff. And also bail you out of like antis or sleeps or something like that, or, you know, getting hooked yourself. It's a very valuable cooldown with a lot of applications. Swift Step, you know, it doesn't really help Hog directly, but it makes her hard to dive, which is good for Hog, so he's not like constantly has to babysit his backline. And kind of segueing into the next point, it helps her like be a really annoying character to fight in off angles because she can kind of walk in and then, you know, teleport away, right? And just waste a ton of cooldowns and take a lot of pressure off the Hog and allow him to walk sometimes, right? And again, you know, going on to ult synergy, right? Kitsune Whole Hog, very good, and, you know, even without Whole Hog, I think I'd say it's weaker than it used to be because Whole Hog has gotten a lot of nerfs. It takes forever to build, for one, and two, it has so much knockback that a lot of times you'll still just push people away just more quickly now in Whole Hog or in Kitsune, right? And you since you don't and Breather isn't on a a cooldown anymore, you don't get it back faster. So like Kitsune doesn't influence how quickly you recharge Breather anymore. So it's still decent, but not quite as good as it used to be. But you still get half time cooldown your hook, so it's like a 3-second hook. Always valuable, right? Just it's still pretty strong with hog is what I'm trying to say. And I think the last person that goes in this category is Juno. She has decent healing over distance, right? I think she slightly loses out to these two because she doesn't have like that one cooldown that really helps Hog deal with a ton of burst. She just has high healing numbers in general. I just like her base heals are almost probably comparable to Anna's, right? Like 90-ish, maybe 100-ish healing per second. And her torpedoes can give you a bit of burst heal. It's not great, but obviously not as good as them. But the cooldown synergy is really good. Speed Ring really helps Hog rotate away or away from danger into better positions, right? Because he has no mobility himself. Um, it's obviously not good just to run in. If you just run in, run it down main as Hog, you'll just explode. But just rotating and trying like rotating faster than the enemy team to try to catch rotations is like what Hog really needs to be doing to win games, right? Um, cool, like and she's a decent off angler. Definitely not as good as these two. I'd say she's almost good, but her ult's just so strong. I think the character is just so strong right now that she should be in the optimal tier. Regardless, like she has pretty free movement, right? She has like the hover thing. She can kind of peek at some odd angles all the time for free, unless there's a widow or something, or a hit scan that's gonna like 1 or 2 shot her. It's pretty free for her, and she's kind of tricky to dive, right? So and her torpedoes are also like actually really dangerous against squishies. They're like a free 85 damage, right? Because they're heat seeking. So she's actually kind of dangerous. I'll say unless she gets mega nerfed, I think maybe for that reason alone, she's still almost optimal. Almost as good as these two, not quite as good. I think if there's a tier between these two, she'd go there. But yeah, her ult's really strong. I mean, I really think it's probably the best ult in the game. I think it's even stronger than Kitsune, significantly stronger. It's pretty much you just put it down, and you get a free team fight win. It's like you get antied by like a queen ult or like a good nade. Yeah, the ult just synergizes with everything because it's so strong. I mean, it's really that simple. Okay, I guess going into the good tier, I think Baptiste is the next best thing, right? He has decent healing stats, right? And his regen burst can kind of give. If he plays close to Hog, he can obviously burst heal him. The problem is he can't, generally speaking, utilize his splash heal a whole lot because Hog wants his teammates split. But he still does decent healing numbers even without splash heal, so it's not the end of the world. Cooldowns again. I guess this is Bap's biggest problem with playing with Hog. They're not very good with Hog. Bap's probably generally speaking going to use them selfishly most of the time. Regen burst again, like people aren't going to be too stacked, and it's decent, but it's generally speaking not going to help a whole lot, especially compared to Nade or Suzu or something like that, or even Speed Ring just to get him out. It's okay, and Lamp, generally speaking, if the Hog has to get lamped, he's probably in like a bad position already. Um, it, what I'm trying to say is like Lamp isn't nearly as good as Suzu because you're probably going to die through it anyways. Like if you get naded low HP and you get lamped, like they're probably just gonna rush you and kill you anyways. So it's like not too valuable most of the time, I'd say. Um, but Bab's very good because he's also very good at off angling, right? Like he's pretty much like a DPS damage wise, and like the jump allows him to just take like really quick off angles and just do a lot of shield pressure and a lot of like backline pressure for free. And unless they have like a widow or an Ash, it's pretty free most of the time. So he's really dangerous. And of course, if he uses his cooldown selfishly, especially with Hog, he still gets value because he's just so hard to kill in one-on-ones, right? So he can get a lot of value just by being like a complete nuisance. He's probably the most consistent off angler support wise. And when I say off angle, I don't necessarily mean flank. Kiri might go more so for flanks. more often, especially than Bap, because she has teleport out or something. But Bap can immediately use his jump to get like some dangerous spot, right, and shoot the backline, pressure them away. Window, I wouldn't say it's too good with Hog, again, because he's going to play split a lot of times. But I will say, if Hog hooks like a tank in front of the window, they just literally just instantly die because it does double damage. So it's not like the worst thing ever. But again, even Bap using it selfishly at a good angle to get picks is like very valuable, right? It's just not as good if you're just as it would be if you're running like some sort of rush comp where everyone can use the window at the same time. I guess where is he? There he is. Lucio. Honestly, I'd say he's generally speaking a worse version of Juno with Hog right now. This might change if Juno receives any nerfs, but I guess the big differentiator before I kind of go step by step is that Hog doesn't always want to get sped in or sped out or something like that. He's only looking to do it, generally speaking, to speed away to safety or catch people's rotations, right? I mean, it's still very valuable, but I think Lucio, because he always has the option to speed even slightly, is a better pick with like, Reinhardt or Queen, tanks that really want to go in than Juno most of the time, right? But regardless, I guess Lucio's biggest problem with Hog is that he has like really bad burst healing, right? He basically has nothing. Even his I don't even know what it's called, like the amp up. It doesn't really do that much burst heal. Of course, his like base burst healing per second, or his base healing per second is really low. Really, you have to use your speed to kind of like mitigate for healing almost. In the matchup, right? I mean, that's generally speaking what Lucio has to do anyways, so not that big of a deal. I will say Lucio's cooldowns, both of them, synergize quite well, right? Speed, very good for catching rotations or getting Hog out of bad situations. Even Boop, I'd say, very good with Hog, honestly, because if Hog boops, or sorry, if Hog hooks an enemy tank around a corner, and Lucio, can see his speed and he can wall ride and stuff, he can easily like go to the other side, the opposite side of where the tank wants to run away to, and boop them back in, and they're like 100% guaranteed to die if he does that, right? Or he can boop like Hog's hooks off the map more easily, something like that, right? Boop. Even then, just defensively, right? Just booping people away, they're trying to chase Hog, very valuable. Like I think you have to be creative, but his cooldowns can get a lot of value with Hog. Lucio is actually a decent off angler, right? I mean, the troll Reddit Lucio can kind of work with Hog sometimes, right? I mean, he can kind of go off and do his own thing, especially against like snipers. You have to be careful, obviously. You can't just do it every single time. But like DPS Lucio can actually enable Hog, right? You don't always need speed, like I said, because Hog doesn't always want to be so close. You want to fish for hooks first and foremost. So if you don't need him to reposition, sometimes him just annoying people that are stationary in the back line is actually very valuable, right? Obviously risky, something to keep in mind. And the ult, I don't know what much to say. The ult's good, getting the 7. It's not really an ult that like super synergizes well with anyone, right? Because anyone in particular, I'd say. I mean, it's decent with Hog. I mean, there's not much to say really. I will say, I think it's better than Zen. I'll say he's the last character to go here. Is better than Zen ults, generally speaking, because it will cut through purple, right? That's a big problem for Hog, right? So getting this plus 700 HP or green health, whatever it's called, over health, is generally speaking probably more valuable than getting the 300 healing per second. Not necessarily always the case, but I think generally speaking it's a little bit better. On to Zen, obviously without ult he does like no healing. The only benefit of this is that his orb is obviously consistent. He doesn't have to worry about it, and he can put it over pretty much any distance, right? I think it's like a 35 or 40 meter range on it, and as long as they're peek you every 5 seconds or so, the orb stays on. So it's okay, not obviously not great, but in a pinch it does work. Cooldowns, obviously healing orb, Zen doesn't really have cooldowns per se. I mean, he kind of does now with Discord, the Discord rework. Healing orb, like I said, it's with Hog. It's honestly not very good, but it works in a pinch. Discord's very dangerous though. If this Zen just discords whoever you hook, they like are guaranteed to instantly die, especially tanks, right? Yeah, very very dangerous. Not much more to say than that. Everyone knows Discord's quite dangerous, but that's That's kind of Zen as a character, right? I think his true power comes in his like DPS and off-angle strength, right? Oh, I'll say Discord in particular helps Hog with like those tanks that just kind of sit in the open against him, like Orisa or Malga, that just kind of need to like permanently spam them to get value. If they get discorded and Zen just spams them, right? And Hog hooks them, it puts so much pressure on them, right? It's not so applicable with like Diva or something like that, another like not so good matchup for Hog. But like Orisa and Malga need to like constantly spam the Hog to get value, right? Or else they're just gonna get overwhelmed. And Zen's very, very good in particular in those matchups, right? Honestly, he's kind of good against Diva a lot because, like I said, Hog has a trouble doing anything without the Diva DMAX, and the Discord can like literally insta kill her if you like 5-orber and Discord or after hook. So yeah. Anyways, I think Zen's true strength, like I said, kind of touched upon on Discord, is that he's very good for shield break. He's very good offensively, right? He can just pump out a lot of damage, especially on enemy tanks. And winning the tank trade is very good for Hog. Because like in a lot of bad matchups for Hog, he just cannot do anything if the tank is still has all their cooldowns, and like he just can't get a hook without getting like stunned off of it or getting DM'd. So his Zen's ability to just like peek at slightly different angles so all of his damage can't get stopped and to score the enemy tank and put a lot of pressure on him is very valuable. And his ult, kind of the same as Lucio's, like I said, not too. It's like a counter ult kind of thing most of the time, right? Yeah. I mean, not too much to say. Okay, so moving on to Lifeweaver, right? Like I said, on certain maps with like, and again, certain comps are kind of disjointed or like kind of maybe divey, I'd say, or on like, more dive centric maps like Dorado, or specific points like Dorado second, or Gibraltar first, or Eichenwald second, for example. Lifeweaver can be very valuable because the pedal, especially now that it's been reworked to like go down after not being used for 2 seconds, it's very valuable just to have a Hog just kind of appear on high ground at some random angle, right? And just get a one shot and then, either just drop down to safety or get pulled away, right? That's kind of goes into cooldown synergy. I guess I'll kind of go over, he doesn't really do the best heals, but at least they have a, very long distance on them. It's okay. But I really want to get him like, the pedal, very good on certain maps, right? On other maps where it's kind of like flat or like, really rush or like poke oriented, they kind of do nothing. But I will say against like a pedal in particular, even life grip kind of enables Hog to like go on some random flank, get a pick, eat a ton of cooldowns and get pulled out and then, live. And now they traded like Hog's hook and pull for a pick and like a billion cooldowns, and it's a free like push or a free hold afterwards. So he's one character that can really enable you to like go deep against certain comps on certain maps. Unfortunately, if they have like a poke comp or a rush comp, he's just kind of delaying the inevitable. You're just gonna get like poked out or rushed down because his biggest problem with Hog is that he pretty much doesn't do anything himself. He does no damage over range, and he like cannot hold angles at all. So like I said, against like really coordinated teams or certain team comps or certain maps, he's just like gonna slowly heal you up and just delay the inevitable of you guys getting pushed away. So yeah, totally. He like can't off angle to slow down like rush comps. And he can't like actually poke himself to actually like force dive comp or poke comps to reposition, right? So and tree, it's okay. I mean, it's kind of like their ults where it's not like super great. It doesn't open up opportunities. It's kind of like a stall ult in regards to Hog in particular. I will say it does give you like cover, and he can get creative with it and like plant it in the doorway after you hook a tank in and guarantee they die. So it's if you get creative with Lightweaver, he can work sometimes with Hog. Yeah, I mean it really depends on the situation. Okay, this category, Moira, she can work with Hog. I don't know why you'd ever pick her. Honestly, most of the time she's like a way worse Kiriko with Hog. She does not really great healing over distance. Her range isn't good. But at the very least, she can kind of heal dump you with like heal orb and your spray. It does like 130-ish healing per second, which can be decent, right? Right, and yeah, I mean her big problem is that she can't heal over distance really. And like Bap, she can't really use her group heals very often with Hog comps. Right, her cooldowns. I mean, she's good at keeping herself alive, and her damage orb can sometimes force people to reposition so Hog can get hooks. But generally speaking, like, yeah, it's just kind of like selfish. I mean, they're really just generally speaking worse versions of like Babs or Kiri's cooldowns, um, when used with Hog in particular. I will say like her only strength with Hog is that she's, like I said, very annoying to kill. So if she like flanks or plays at some like awkward angles in like tiny rooms where she can like get good sustain off her heal orb or whatever, or like chuck damage orbs at people and kill them, she can be very annoying and conditionally even harder to kill than Kiriko. Um, this is like the only reason I'd say she's okay with Hog sometimes and not like bad, because she can be very annoying that way. And her ult, I don't really think it's that good and doesn't really do anything with Hog. You know, like it doesn't really help him push any more than um, her just healing him does. If she uses it to heal him and damaged opponents, like really she wants to use it some weird angle, like she's always doing, and try to get behind them, behind the enemy team, or like to the side of them to force them out of cover or something like that. Um, and then maybe at the very last second, you know, or sometime heal the Hog and hurt the enemies. But yeah, it's not like super easy to use. Like if you had a rush comp where everyone just stacks on your Reinhardt or something and just like plow through the enemy team, yeah, that's generally speaking not going to work with Roadhog. And let's see, Yari. Again, I don't really see the reason to use Yari with Hog. I mean, she's good burst heal with her, um, whatever her beam. I don't even know what it's called. Her right click, but her pylon doesn't heal much. And like I said, Hog team don't want to really group too much. So like the pylon's probably going to be used for the Yari and maybe like another DPS at most. And the problem with Yari, because she has to off angle, she'll have to like use her outburst, I think it's called, her jump thing, waste that to get to the Hog to burst him with her right click, right? So you're really not like great heals with Hog, honestly. Again, like I kind of touched on this, her cooldowns pretty much entirely selfish, right? Like she has pylon, doesn't really help Hog at all or his team. Outburst quite literally does nothing. You know, it can kind of save her from getting dove. And she can sometimes use it kind of like a Lucio boop, but because she doesn't have speed or wall ride, it's a lot riskier. And she's also kind of frail, so it can work sometimes, but definitely not as good as Lucio boop. Um, I guess kind of like Moira, her claim to fame, I guess, in the Hog team comp is that she's a pretty strong off angler. I just think she's generally speaking a worse version of Bap. I just think her weapon isn't that good, especially as you climb, because it has so much downtime between shots, right? So the problem with the gun is you hit someone once or twice, you can't kill them, and they take cover and get healed because she has to wait between like firing so much, right? Whereas Bap or San or something like that can just constantly dump damage and like actually threaten kills pretty much all the time. But she's still okay because at least she has pylon, so she's pretty much just guaranteed to heal herself without like using a big cooldown on it, right? So, and her ult, you know, it's kind of a selfish ult. Um, I don't know what to say except she can like, you know, chuck it at someone, get picks with it, and, you know, force people out of cover or something, make them panic. Or, you know, maybe if Hog hooks a tank, she can captive stun them and blow them up for sure. But that's about it. Yeah, I mean, her ult's pretty like straightforward. Really, just get picks with it. Doesn't really synergize with anyone really. And the bad tier again, I generally speaking would not pick these characters with Hog. They don't really do anything for them. They don't really synergize with them. I will say Brig, you know, if they're running dive or something, that's the only excusable time to pick Brig with Hog. But I'd rather just run Kiri Lucio. Obviously on ladder, right? You can't really control that, and they're gonna have hero pools or whatever. I'd rather run even Moira Lucio, Kiri Moira, something like that. One combination of them. Because Brig, I just don't think she really does anything for Hog. She's a lot of problems the other group healers had, but like her health packs in particular don't enable Hog at all, really. Right? I mean, they have range on them, but like her Inspire, right, has I mean, its range is decent. It's not like the greatest, and its healing per second isn't like the best, right? It doesn't really burst. And Hog, like I said, really needs that burst heal, so not particularly valuable for Hog himself. It can be okay with, I mean, unfortunately, that's really not the point of Brig in the first place, I know. to do burst heals, but like I said, Hog wants the burst heals, right? Her cooldowns, honestly, basically useless with Hog. Shield Bash doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and it's primarily like a repositioning tool anyways. I mean, you can Shield Bash, the Hog's hook target, and do extra AD damage to it. That helps, obviously. But any other character here can just shoot them and do the exact same thing. And I see so many Brigs all the time whip shot my hooks away and save people, right? I mean, sometimes you'll see this as Lucio. It's a lot less common because, like I said, they're generally always looking for boops. That's just booping. I feel like Lucio players in general are always looking to use their boop to more proactively reposition people towards their team's benefit. That's mostly because of the character design, right? Like I said, Lucio has the speed, he has the wall ride. He can kind of be anywhere within like a small radius at any time. Brig doesn't have that ability, right? She has to really expose herself to whip shot, like someone you hook back into your team. So it's really risky for her, right? So they're just gonna like instinctively boot people away after you hook them, and you'll do like 20 damage to them and waste 2 cooldowns, right? And they'll be completely safe. Yeah. So Brig players, if you're listening to this, please stop doing that. Please stop booping your Hog's hooks, but that's okay. I will say Brig, I guess, similar to these characters, her big claim to fame in the Hog comp is that she's annoying to push when she's at an off angle, right? I mean, alone, she might not really do anything, but if she's supporting someone, she can be like a complete pain to force her and her teammate off an angle, right? Yeah, especially like against a lot of dive characters that don't have like the greatest range, she can be really irritating. Yeah, I mean that's really just that simple. And her ult is, I'll say actually it's decent with Hog. The hook into the stun can sometimes just insta kill tanks. It depends on the situation. And if people group up right, I mean, like I said, that's a problem with Hog in general. You don't generally want to be like all stacking the same angle. But once you have like the shield, you kind of have an ability to kind of group up and push behind your Brig almost, and like your Hog and Brig alternate taking the focus fire of the enemy team, right? I like it. Like I said, Briggs. If this was a character list, like tier list for strength of the characters, I think Brig would be like up here somewhere. Hog in general, like I said, I think generally speaking, you'd be better off picking literally anyone else. Not literally anyone else. There's one more character. But like I said, she doesn't really do anything for Hog that anyone else here wouldn't do better like 99% of the time, right? Like I just listed, like her cooldowns do nothing. Her healing doesn't really do anything. I'll even say her cooldowns actively like hurt Roadhog, and you're just kind of waiting for you to get ult to like get any actual value with Hog. I'd say I think Mercy's a horrible character. I think she's really bad. I really do not like playing with Mercy at all. I'd almost like to make a new tier, like never pick this character in general. Yeah, I mean, the character is completely painful to play with because like if you don't have like a hit scan or like echo far like deadlifter in your game, she's like completely dead weight, especially with like Hog comps, because you can't really run speed with her. So like if someone dies in your team and you get rushed, Hog is already weak to rush. So like you're gonna have a hard time getting your res off unless you're in a poke matchup, where you can just res a widow or something, right? I'll go into like the case by case thing. Mercy obviously doesn't really heal over distance. She literally can't burst heal. Yeah, I mean it's that straightforward. At least Brig has packs, it's kind of burst heal. Mercy is like kind of like Zen or Lifeweaver. They more so like Zen. At least Lifeweaver can burst heal for like his very first heal. Yeah, she has absolutely no burst heal, and she has to commit her Guardian Angel if you're too far away, right? Which puts her at risk, right? Yeah, really bad heals for tanks in general, right? Especially when your tanks has to play super split. I mean, really, Mercy's kind of like a DPS damage boost bot. Yeah, she doesn't really synergize with any tank. I'll say like the only good thing about having a Mercy on your team when you're playing Hog is if she uses her Guardian Angel well and like plays close enough to you and your DPS, which is gonna happen. I'm making it seem like everyone's on a flank all the time playing with Hog. No, you're gonna be grouped up, but not like too tight. You're gonna be taking a lot of off angles, so she'll be able to fly between like her DPS and the Hog. she can, Guardian Angel to the Hog and like damage boost them to guarantee one shots, but like I'd say personally like 95% of the time I get one shots alone anyways, and I'd rather just not run a Mercy and just have literally anyone else on my team shoot the person I hook if I don't one shot them in the first place, right? This is really only like an issue if I hook a May or a Reaper. That can get out. Like if you hook a Torb or a Bastion, you just like two shot them anyways. It's really only going to help against like Reaper and May in particular. If you don't have trap and you like, or they're at like some really weird angle where it's like impossible to headshot them. Any other character I hook, basically I can one shot them alone, or I'd just rather have someone shoot them too. I mean, it's that simple. Mercy obviously does nothing like Lifeweaver pretty much by her own on the off angle, but she really, and like this is again the only like claim to fame she has with Hog. She can enable like an Ashe or Widow or Fire Echo cast or something like that to do a lot more pressure on off angle and take a lot of pressure off Hog. Unfortunately, what usually happens is you just get beat down so much on the front line that they have troubles taking better position. Not always, obviously. If you have a hit scan carry or an Echo Fire carry, this doesn't happen. They can be really dominant. Hog is probably honestly one of the better tanks with Mercy. I just don't think the character's good. Fundamentally because if you don't have like a carry, a DPS carry, like I said, the one that works well with Mercy, like a poke, a DPS that's like actually decent at poking, you'd pretty much rather, instead of having the 1.3 damage boost or whatever and the chance to res, which is honestly when you go up in rank, it's only going to happen either if she ults or if they're running like a slow comp. Instead of having the 1.3 or 1.25 damage boost to one player, you'd rather just have a BAP or a Zen or an Ana or a Kiri that are doing literally like 0.6 to like as much 0.6 to the amount of DPS as your damage, or literally as almost as much as DPS as your damage characters anyways. So like I think you're just fundamentally giving a lot up by playing this character. The ult synergy, again, not particularly great. I think Falc's kind of a bad ult. In general, I actually didn't even know what it did until I hit Masters for the first time. I mean, this is a year and a half ago or something. I don't remember exactly when, maybe 2 years. Not too important. I think the ult's bad in general. The only good thing is like you can kind of feed this Hog when she has ult, and she can get the res off on you because she's kind of hard to stop if they don't have stuns or anything. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, yeah, like if you can't tell, I'm not really a big fan of Mercy. So I hope this helps.